Hello, guys. Welcome back to TFD. Yeah, take a breath for a second. Exhale, because if you rewind the tape just 1 year, this Knicks story almost doesn't make sense. Last season, New York's bench wasn't just bad, it was lifeless. Dead last in the league, 21 points per game from the reserves, starters grinding, 35, sometimes 38 minutes a night. Every close game felt like a countdown. Shot clock under 10, legs heavy, offense stalling. You could feel it coming. Now, fast forward to today, and that same franchise just watched its bench flip momentum on the biggest stage, powering a comeback in the NBA Cup Finals. So the obvious question is, what actually changed in New York? To understand that, you've got to go back. The Knicks' 24-25 season looked impressive on paper, a 51-31 record, third in the East, Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Progress, no doubt. But the ending left a bitter taste. It exposed what had been hiding in simple sight. Thin depth, defensive cracks, the kind playoff basketball always finds. Karl-Anthony Towns changed the offense overnight. Top 10 scoring unit, better spacing, constant pressure. Jalen Brunson played like a true franchise engine night after night. But defense? That took time. And even when it stabilized late, perimeter breakdowns, injuries, they kept showing up at the worst moments. The front office tried to patch those leaks. Real wing defenders, real assets. But the truth didn't change. Opponents hunted the same weak spots. The starters carried too much weight. And by the time the conference finals arrived, that fatigue had already won. That's why the offseason message was loud. This wasn't about effort anymore. It was about evolution. Tom Thibodeau squeezed everything out of that roster, but the Knicks wanted sustainability, a system, not survival. Enter Mike Brown, a coach built for collaboration, depth, adaptability. New York wasn't rejecting its past. They were betting on a different future, one where the whole roster matters, not just the first five.
And Jalen Brunson makes them pay. Every time. And once Mike Brown finally sat down with the people in charge, everything clicked. Not just because he was qualified, but because he was aligned. This wasn't about hiring someone who would tolerate input. Brown actively welcomed it. From the front office, from his assistants, from his players. Yes, Mike Brown still makes the final call. That hasn't changed. But the environment has. During games, players can suggest adjustments without fear. Assistants carry real responsibility, not just clipboards. And the front office, they see their ideas reflected on the floor, not buried in meetings. Trust formed quickly. And in the NBA, that matters. Still, even with a new voice leading the room, the roster needed work. And that's where the Knicks offseason told you everything about their mindset. It wasn't flashy. No headlines, no reckless swings. And that was entirely intentional. Instead of chasing high-cost, high-risk stars, New York made disciplined, financially smart moves aimed at reliability and balance. Jordan Clarkson, Guerschon Yabusele. Not names that break the internet, but players who stabilize a bench immediately. Shot creation, physicality, professional minutes. With Mike Brown in place, expectations were clear. Defined rotations, smarter workload management, tactical balance instead of survival basketball. Yes, the Knicks explored the superstar market. Giannis, Kevin Durant. Conversations happened, but restraint won out. In a wide-open Eastern Conference, especially with injuries thinning out rivals, New York didn't need a seismic move to become a threat. They already were one. What they needed was structure. The biggest issue from last season was obvious: perimeter defense. The Brunson-Towns pairing struggled containing guards, and opponents made New York pay. Teams shot 36.8% from three, 12th worst in the league. Those breakdowns, a major reason Indiana exposed them in the conference finals. Even with a top 10 defense by year's end, Injuries and fatigue dulled the edge. When Mike Brown took over, though, his first priority wasn't defense. It wasn't even rotations. It was offense. Specifically, how the Knicks used Jalen Brunson. The goal was never to take the ball out of his hands. It was to get him off the ball before he goes to work. Instead of walking it up, pounding the air out of the ball, letting defenses load up, Brunson gives it up earlier. He relocates. He attacks a defense already in motion. The numbers tell the story. Last season, Brunson averaged just 1.9 catch-and-shoot attempts per game. This year, over 3. His time of possession per touch dropped from 6.06 seconds to 5.18. Dribbles per touch fell sharply too. By league metrics, the Knicks technically aren't playing faster. Still bottom 5 in pace. Secondary assists haven't spiked. But if you watch the games, the difference is unmistakable. There's more half-court motion, more side-to-side pressure. The ball moves with purpose before flowing into actions. As the season's gone on, there's been a subtle pivot back to what works best. Late in games, New York leans harder into the Brunson Karl-Anthony Towns pick and roll. That's not a retreat. That's Mike Brown learning his personnel in real time. Early experimentation gave way to refinement. The byproduct? One of the most interesting three-point profiles in the league. The Knicks rank 3rd in open three-point attempts per game, but just 25th in wide-open threes. Last year, 10th and 29th. Translation: more threes generated through movement, closeouts, and quick decisions, not static looks. Offensive rebounding has fueled that shift. Mitchell Robinson has been massive. When he grabs an offensive board, his instinct isn't always to force it back up. It's to kick it out, reset the advantage. Those extra possessions turn into clean perimeter looks. Brunson still looks like Brunson, but now there's flow around him. That's new, and it's dangerous. Defensively, Mike Brown has been just as deliberate. Protect the rim, speed teams up, live with the math. Take away the most efficient shots, even if it means conceding threes. It's not revolutionary. It's intentional. And for the Knicks, it finally feels sustainable.
Mikal Bridges has talked openly about how uncomfortable the adjustment felt at first. Helping off the strong side corner used to be a basketball sin, something drilled out of him over years. Now, to shut down drives, he and his teammates are being asked to break instincts they've relied on their entire careers. That's the modern NBA. Offenses are too skilled, spacing is too precise, old defensive rules are being rewritten in real time, and the Knicks are making a very deliberate choice about which shots they're willing to live with and which ones they absolutely refuse to allow. On the surface, this team doesn't look radically different from last season's group through 25 games. The Knicks were top 5 offensively and top 15 defensively then, and that's largely true again now. The pace hasn't changed much, three-point volume is up, paint touches are down, and yet the results feel different. At this point, the Knicks are 3 games better than they were a year ago. A softer Eastern Conference helps, sure, but so do the subtle adjustments Mike Brown has made. Leaning into Brunson's off-ball game, using spacing-friendly lineups, installing a defensive system that amplifies OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges instead of forcing them to play against their strengths. Talent matters. The Knicks have it. But the gap between good and great lives in the details. And Mike Brown is uncovering edges that were hiding in plain sight, building a culture of openness, communication, and accountability, where listening and adapting are strengths, not weaknesses.
Sound familiar? Roll the clock back to the summer of 2014. Mark Jackson had just pulled Golden State out of irrelevance, but he was rigid, set in his ways, increasingly misaligned with the front office. Then, Steve Kerr walked through the door. You already know how that story ends. Now, no one is claiming the Knicks are guaranteed to win it all this year, especially with Oklahoma City operating like a machine. But the parallel is hard to ignore. New York may not have landed the ultimate prize, but they grabbed the next best thing, and they look confident doing it. The NBA Cup Final marked the Knicks' sixth straight win and their 10th in the last 11 games. It may not count in the standings, but make no mistake, this mattered. Beating an up-and-coming San Antonio team was a statement, a signal that New York belongs firmly in the championship conversation and may be the most battle-tested team near the top of the East. They entered the quarterfinals struggling on the road. Something clicked. Jalen Brunson took control. The bench delivered. The Knicks flipped the script, winning in Toronto by 16, then riding Brunson's season-high 40 points past Orlando and Vegas. In the final, they closed. A 35-19 fourth quarter ended the debate. This wasn't survival. It was execution. One win won't define a season. But this one absolutely matters.
And the way it happened should excite Knicks fans even more, because this wasn't a top-heavy win. Jalen Brunson didn't lead the team in scoring. Karl-Anthony Towns didn't take over as the greatest shooting big of his generation. Mikal Bridges wasn't dominant on both ends. Josh Hart has had louder nights. This win wasn't about one star. It was about everyone. OG Anunoby set the tone early, scoring efficiently in the first half, then later taking on the toughest assignment when it mattered most, slowing down De'Aaron Fox in winning time. Jordan Clarkson came off the bench and buried timely three after timely three, flipping momentum possession by possession. Mitchell Robinson went to work on the offensive glass, flying over Victor Wembanyama and anyone else San Antonio put in front of him, creating extra chances when New York needed them most. And then there was Tyler Kolek, a barely 6-foot second-round pick playing the game of his life. 14 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds in just 20 minutes. New York needed every bit of it. The Spurs controlled large stretches of this game, but the Knicks erased the deficit because production came from everywhere. That's depth. And yes, Mike Brown deserves real credit here. There was a stretch in the second half where Brunson, Clarkson, and Kolek shared the floor. On paper, that lineup shouldn't work, especially defensively. It hadn't worked in limited minutes before, and if Miles McBride or Landry Shamet were healthy, it might not have existed at all. But Brown needed offense. He experimented, and it worked. That trio flipped the game. Brown didn't coach scared. On the biggest stage of his Knicks tenure so far, he trusted his guys and tried something unconventional. That combination, depth, belief, adaptability, is how championship teams are built. After trailing by 5 entering the fourth, New York opened the quarter on an 8-0 run, sparked by back-to-back Clarkson threes. Robinson grabbed 4 offensive rebounds during that stretch, helping the Knicks seize their first lead since late in the first quarter. They never gave it back. New York outscored San Antonio by 16 in the final frame, allowing just 19 points after surrendering 94 through 3 quarters. The unlikely lineup of Brunson, Kolek, Clarkson, Anunoby, and Robinson changed everything. For years, the Knicks folded when it mattered. That version is gone.
But today, Knicks head coach Mike Brown frustrated with officiating involving OG Anunoby. While Knicks head coach Mike Brown acknowledged that his team didn't play their crispest in Friday night's 116-107 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers, in which they turned the ball over 18 times, he wasn't exactly pleased with the officiating either.
It's still December. The real test is coming. This time, New York looks ready for the questions.